So obviously this week, all eyes have been on all those local and state elections that have been happening across the country. There were a couple of big governor races, obviously the New York City mayoral race that was really big, and some ballot measures that are really important. And we'll get into those later in the episode, but we're going to start off with giving you some big political, kind of underreported national stories that you might not have heard of.
So that means it's time for everyone's favorite recurring segment, Trump dates.
So ICE is looking into hiring private bounty hunters to basically track immigrants from across the country and bring them to the government. And that's according to an official ICE document that was procured by investigative journalists at The Intercept.
That seems so extreme, and using the word hunters in regards to humans is just always off-putting.
No, it's so true. It's already categorizing it as this very scary thing. And according to this document, these bounty hunters will be given a lot of information of up to 1 million immigrants from basically all the data that ICE collects. So it can be like photos, texts, location, just basically everything that they have, which we know can be a lot since ICE has spent millions of dollars acquiring all of this spyware to basically track immigrants and what's happening in real time. And going through this entire document, something that I thought was really concerning was that ICE says that they're basically exploring an incentive-based pricing structure to encourage quick results from these bounty hunters. So, for example, they give the bounty hunters a bonus for identifying a person's correct address on the first try, or for finding 90% of its targets within a set time frame.
Do we know if these are like government employees? Like, are they sanctioned in any way, or it's just anyone who signs up who brings them someone?
Literally any type of rando that's hired by ICE.
That's crazy.
And apparently these hunters are encouraged to use off-the-shelf digital surveillance and monitor these immigrants on the ground. So literally going to stalk them in person, even though, like we're saying, they're not government approved. And it's really scary because we've reported on how ICE is just gaining more and more power through this administration. They've been spending so much. They've been conducting more aggressive raids, and they've been targeting people inaccurately. Like we talked about how this past year, they've basically brought in 20 children who happen to be American, 2 of them which happen to have cancer. So they're kind of using all of this money in ways that aren't being monitored. And now we're bringing in these private bounty hunters to track people down.
Well, literally on the way here, we got a Times alert that U.S. immigration officials accidentally put a Trump golf club worker on the wrong plane and sent him back to Mexico. Accidentally. Trump is launching a Truth Social betting platform. So Truth Social users will now be able to place crypto bets on political elections, shifts in the economy like inflation rates, prices on gold or crude oil, and sports games. This new feature is called Truth Predict, and it's an exclusive arrangement with crypto.com. And this is kind of Trump and his family's attempt to compete with Polymarket and Kalshi, which are super popular multi-billion-dollar prediction market platforms. And what's weird is that they're trying to compete with these platforms, but also Don Jr. is an advisor to both of those companies. And obviously this poses serious ethical questions since users will bet on political matters that Trump as president can influence. Like, Trump could announce new tariffs while people close to him on his own platform wager whether or not Trump will introduce tariffs.
Well, he could also tell them what he's about to do and have these people bet on what he's going to do. It's like totally insider trading potentially.
Yeah. And it's just the latest thing in the Trump family crypto business endeavors. And the latest estimate is that the Trump family has made $1 billion just in the past year from their crypto ventures.
So Trump is back in DC after spending the whole last week in Asia. He went to China, Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, and it seemed like he had a pretty good trip because he was basically just flattered the entire time. I guess world leaders have really caught on to the fact that having really close personal relations with Trump actually enhances their diplomacy basically with the US. Like we all saw the 100 dancers greet Trump in Malaysia when he was like dancing with them. And then the YMCA played when he landed in South Korea, which we know is his like one of the songs that are always
his favorite song.
Yeah, like, okay. And then he was given a lot of gifts when he landed. Like the president of South Korea gave Trump a replica of a golden crown that was significant to Korea's history, and then awarded him Korea's highest civilian honor. It's like super random.
Okay.
And then in Japan, the new prime minister said she'd nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize.
So like, little A lady.
Yeah, like clearly that conversation has not died yet. And this kind of flattery extends to also what Trump ate on this trip. I thought this was really interesting. The New York Times kind of compiled all of the foods that Trump ate on this trip. And it also kind of showcased how even chefs went above and beyond to appease his like childish palate and make nods to America and the food that they were giving him. So in South Korea for lunch, he had beef patties with ketchup and salad with Thousand Island dressing, which is like his favorite sauce, and then dessert with brownies decorated with the color of gold that President Trump favors.
Oh, I didn't know he had a favorite shade of gold.
I know. And then the menu developers literally admitted that it's been a balancing act to show the country's tradition, but also appease his taste because he is so, I guess, picky. And they said they would have preferred to showcase more Korean dishes, but they were under, quote, tight constraints.
I can imagine he likes a more bland palate, maybe. And no shade.
Q2 like Ren eating like bland rice in India.
Literally, no spice, please. As of yesterday, it's officially the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, surpassing the previous record from Trump's first term, as we know. And it's still at such a stalemate. Both sides are banking on the other side buckling first. So like Democrats thought when the Obamacare premiums were released and we saw the crazy increases, Republicans would like then come to the negotiating table. But that didn't work either because Republicans are still saying they're only going to discuss tax credits if Democrats open the government first to do that. But the healthcare numbers that came out were shocking. So without the tax credits, which again, Republicans got rid of in their big, beautiful bill at the beginning of this year, premiums are skyrocketing as much as 300%. And 90% of people who are on Obamacare get these tax premiums. So it's like 20 million people. ABC News interviewed a woman who used to pay $500 for coverage for both her husband and herself. And now she like saw her premium for next year, it's $2,000.
Oh my God.
So it's quadruple what she's been paying. And she said she literally cannot afford that. Like she and her family simply can't. They are just going to have to discontinue health insurance. And then, of course, also SNAP funding has officially lapsed as of the 1st of this month. And 2 judges ordered Trump to continue SNAP funding with emergency funds through the shutdown. But Trump's lawyers argued back that they aren't sure if they have the legal authority to keep SNAP funded through the government shutdown. And I just thought that was really rich because they didn't seem to care about breaking the law when they were sending migrants to El Salvador prisons. But now that's like food assistance. Oh, we have to be so careful.
Yeah, when do they care so much about what is or isn't legal? I'm sure they could make it work if they wanted to.
Yeah, they ultimately have adhered to them. They're going to use $4.6 billion that the USDA has in a contingency fund to keep up the food assistance. But that amount will only cover 50% of what households usually get. And that means that in weeks or even days, low-income families again could be strapped for food. So it really... This is one I don't see how until the government reopens we get out of this, and 42 million Americans rely on SNAP.
So a new report is claiming that Stephen Miller is running daily super sus meetings under the table to, quote, turn the State Department into an anti-immigration machine. This report has basically said that these meetings happen most mornings at 10 a.m. It's literally called the Stephen Miller Call, and he gathers like a small circle of diplomats and loyal conservatives to talk mostly about immigration matters, which we know Stephen Miller's obsessed with.
Yeah.
And the reason that this is really concerning is because there's no public briefing associated with this, so there's really no room to analyze what they're talking about, even though a lot of these discussions actually lead to real policies. And to get into what's actually being discussed, an insider said these officials are asked about status updates on refugees and discussing individual visa cancellations for critics of Israel or of Charlie Kirk.
Jeez.
Like individual.
They're just so obvious about it. It's so targeted.
So an example that this insider gave was, remember when those 6,000 student visas were revoked in August for support for terrorism, aka they supported Palestine? This new report claims that these cancellations stemmed from and were planned in a Stephen Miller morning call.
Whoa. Don't you just see Voldemort now?
Yeah.
So a brand new Senate investigation has uncovered medical neglect and abysmal conditions in ICE detention centers around the country. So we read this report and we're going to break down some of the most disturbing findings. Number 1, at one Texas facility, adults were forced to compete with children for clean water because staff only left out a few bottles at a time.
Oh my God.
And then other detainees described meals being served that were too small for adults, milk that was expired, and water that smelled foul and made children sick. And then on top of that, there's tons of cases of medical neglect. Sometimes they have been life-threatening. So like one detainee suffered a heart attack after complaining of chest pain for days without treatment. Others said they didn't get inhalers when they have asthma or had to wait weeks for prescriptions to be filled. And a diabetic detainee went without glucose monitoring or insulin for days and actually became delirious before getting medical attention.
That's horrific. How is this legal?
And then the most heartbreaking case, an older man experienced stroke-like symptoms, including being paralyzed on the left side. And the report just said eventually he was taken to the hospital, so who knows how long he had to wait. But once he was there, he was placed in the ICU for several days. And the doctors prescribed him a walker to help him get around throughout his recovery. But the ICE detention staff wouldn't let him have it, and they placed him in an isolation cell. But he was still paralyzed on half of his body, so he wasn't able to get up or get his food, shower, use the bathroom. So he just laid there in his soiled bed sheets. Like, it's just so inhumane.
And you would expect something as horrifying as this to be reported everywhere, and it's like the major headlines everywhere, but you said that this report was really hard to find. No one's really paying attention.
The fact that this is happening and these are all very credible reports and no one even blinked is crazy.
Apparently Trump's cabinet members are literally living on military bases to hide from protesters.
Oh, are they preppers now?
Well, it's kind of disturbing that they have to do this. But okay, let's walk through exactly what's going on. So Stephen Miller, yet again, apparently him and his entire family have had to relocate from their home in Virginia to a U.S. military base after activists basically started coming for him because of all of his immigration crackdown policies. But the weird thing is, obviously military housing is taxpayer funded. So basically we are paying for Stephen Miller's new house while he just put his Virginia house for about $3.5 million on the market. So he's kind of like profiting off of the fact that he's getting free housing for a couple of years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I know. And he's not just the only one who is doing this. So Kristi Noem apparently moved into military housing that's normally reserved for the head of the Coast Guard. And this was sad. It was after the Daily Mail described the location of her DC apartment building, which is just like so weird. Don't do that.
Yeah. Do you remember when Trump doxed Obama?
Yeah.
No one talks about that.
Okay.
I guess the tables have turned.
Literally.